So here we are picking up where we left off. This time we're going to look at some aggressive-ish turns. Let me just let you watch the video so you see what that means. Okay, we'll go back now. About 35 seconds is where they are. And let's just take a look at the roll axis here. Oh, I'm sorry, I have my graph set up wrong. I want PID P sub roll. Sorry about that. Hold on. There we go. So here we see RC command start to push into the move. Throttle drops somewhat as you go into the move. The P term goes negative, pushing into the move. The move is still happening. We're about halfway through the move. The P term goes positive and is now pushing against the move. Nothing wrong with that. It just depends on how the copter's dynamics are. Very interesting looking at the D term. Your D term looks really well behaved throughout here. We see these as you move the stick and the P term jumps. We see these small jumps, but overall the D term is not super active. And now you're slowing the move down. You're returning the stick to center. P term is slowing the move down. Stick is still not centered. P term is still slowing the move down. And as the stick starts to return to center, P term, the copter just barely, yeah, not bad at all. Copter, the gyro line returns to 0 right here, just a little bit before your RC command does. Overall, still looks pretty solid. Let's look at the second one. Here's another turn going the other direction. RC command starts to rise. Throttle drops. P term is pretty, got a little push into the move. Now pushing against the move, pretty normal. And as you come back down, yeah, so there's not a super lot of activity in your PIDs. These are moderately aggressive turns, but the PIDs are handling them without getting too out of shape. So it looks overall like a pretty solid tune. Let's go ahead forward now to see the same thing with air mode on. Here we go. Air mode is on this time. RC command is rising. We're pushing into the move. RC command is going up. I'm a little confused because I see RC command start to rise here. I see the P term go slightly positive, and the copter is now turning. We can see the gyro indicate that the copter is turning. I'm really surprised at how little motion there was in the P term to get this move going. The move is definitely going. Now the P term is 0 again and actually slowing the copter down. I guess the copter seems really willing to roll. Maybe you have a high CG or something. It seems like it takes very little action of the P term to get the copter to roll, and then the P term spends the whole rest of the move trying to slow it down. You see how the P term is on the opposite side of the line from RC command and the gyro? There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's just the PID loop. The copter is either going to tend to roll or it's not. So the PID loop is either going to be pushing into the move or pushing out of the move, probably. So there's nothing wrong with that. But it is an interesting how willing the copter seems to turn. It makes me wonder about the layout of the copter, what type of frame it is, and CG and so forth. Here we go, RC command and the gyro return to 0 here. And then afterwards, we do get some prop wash oscillation as you raise the throttle. That may just mean that with air mode, you need to back your PIDs off a little bit. But that doesn't seem related to the behavior in the tune at all. Not much seems to have changed here with air mode for this type of move. Part of that may be because your throttle was higher to begin with. You didn't really drop the throttle all the way to 0. It's relatively high at 1200, so there may not be as much of a pronounced difference at moderate throttle versus at 0 throttle. It is interesting though, and again, it's hard to judge whether this is air mode doing this or whether this is just a coincidence, but there really isn't a lot of push into the turn in this example. And then we're going to see what happens at full throttle, and for that, I think the thing that's going to be most instructive is to look at the P terms and to look at the gyros, because that's going to help us see what kind of oscillations there are and so forth. So as the throttle goes up, I'm guessing that's yaw. Yeah, yaw P starts to go crazy, and yaw gyro. I mean, I say go crazy. That's a little too strong of a sentiment. But you see a lot more activity on yaw usually than on pitch and roll. That's always tricky to tune. And of course, Blackbox has, or not Blackbox, CleanFlight, Betaflight has a P-term filter specifically for yaw, just for this reason. So that's a thing that you could try to tune in this situation. But the copter seems to be flying pretty good and maybe isn't worth overthinking it. Um, I suspect we're not going to see a lot of difference with air mode here. This, by the way, is with air mode off. I suspect we're not going to see a lot of difference because with the throttle high, that's probably where the differences between the two are least pronounced. The PIDs are equally strong there, I would think. After this, we have a drop, a long no throttle drop at about 51 seconds. And we'll just take a quick look at that before we move on. The throttle is down. We're doing a flip and we're falling. Let's just watch that. And everything is very well behaved. So this, I think, will be very interesting to see if there is more activity in the P terms with the throttle down when we activate air mode. So let's go ahead and take a look at the full throttle with air mode on, which is at 1 minute 50. Here is full throttle with air mode on. And I mean, if I were to put these right next to each other, perhaps I would see a difference. But maybe the D term looks more active on, oh no, the P term looks more active on yaw. Possibly I'd have to put them side by side, but there's no glaring differences here. I wonder if the P terms are less active on pitch and roll. Well, now I'm going to go back and look. 43 seconds. Yeah, it could be. That could be a coincidence, though. That could just be a difference in the exact nature of the maneuver. I'm not sure I'm willing to chalk that up to air mode yet. Here's our full throttle climb. They do look pretty close to the axis. Maybe the change to the mixer is increasing their effectiveness, and so the P term, P and the D, these are just P terms. The P terms have to be less active to get the job done. Certainly does look like the yaw P term is more active here. Let's find our zero throttle drop. It's at 1 minute 32. There's a zero throttle drop. I think that's it. Let's check. Yeah. Okay. And not a lot of difference there, frankly. Not a lot of difference. Not a lot of visible difference, but I'm sure that you can feel the difference. One reason I think there's not a lot of difference here is that you did this drop, but you weren't actually inputting any commands at the time. So I would think that the place you would see the most difference, and perhaps we did see that if you go back to the first video, is at low throttle maneuvers. Climb, drop the throttle, and then do an Immelman or do a flip or something, and that's where you're really going to see the most difference. But honestly, it really seems like the difference. I mean, the difference is night and day to the people who've flown it, and I think that maybe we're not going to be able to really see that feeling in the black box logs. All right, well, I know that you also asked for a comment on your general tune, and I'm going to go ahead and do a separate video about that, so just hold on for that one. But I'm going to go ahead and get these two air mode videos up because I know everybody's really anxious to see them. That's all for now, and as always, happy flying.